Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. In this video, we will be talking about Mad Lazim. So bismillah, let's get into the details. In terms of learning outcomes and what you should be able to get out from this video, the first learning outcome is that you should be able to identify and apply Mad Lazim. Secondly, you should be able to recognize the length of Mad Lazim, i.e. how many harakat. And thirdly, you should be able to differentiate between Mad Lazim in a letter or a word. Let's start with a famous example of Mad Lazim in Surah Al-Fatiha. وَلَا الضَّالِّينَ. The lengthening of this alif, that is Mad Lazim. So what is Mad Lazim? A simple definition for when Mad Lazim comes is when there is a harf of mad and it's followed by a sukoon, which is an original or permanent sukoon. What does an original sukoon mean? It means that the sukoon is always there. And how long should Mad Lazim be? Well, it's 6 harakat. In other words, you can say that is 3 times as long as Mad Tabi'i, which is 2 harakat. So da, that's 2, but if it was Mad Lazim, it would be da, da, da. That's 3 times as long as Mad Tabi'i. Let's go back to our example. In the word وَلَا الضَّالِّينَ, where is this original sukoon? When we dissect the harf mushaddad, the letter that has a shaddah, which is the lam. Now technically, a harf which has a shaddah is actually 2 letters, where the first letter is a letter with a sukoon, a lam with a sukoon, and the second lam is a lam with a kasrah. So now you see after the alif there is a lam with a sukoon, which is part of the lam mushaddada. Now Mad Lazim can come in a word and it also can come in a letter. So in letters, an example is when we say noon or yasin. So this lengthening of noon, that's Mad Lazim, and that's 6 harakat. The length of seen, that would be 6 harakat. We have a separate video on these huruf, which are separated huruf. We'll put a link to it above. But for now, we want to know that Mad Lazim comes in a word or a letter. Another couple of examples for Mad Lazim. الصاخة. الصاخة. And the same as one of our previous examples, the alif here was followed by a kha which has a shaddah, and the kha which has a shaddah is a kha with a sukoon, then a kha with a fatha. So the alif is followed technically with a harf which has sukoon. Another example, الآن وقد عصيت. So here there was an alif maddiyah followed by a lam which had a sukoon, and that's 6 harakat. Again, that's a Mad Lazim. Now let's go back to what does an original or permanent sukoon mean. So in the word وَلَا الضَّالِّينَ, so the sukoon on the first lam of the lam mushaddada, that's a permanent or original sukoon. That will never change. It will always be there if I were to stop at the end of the word وَلَا الضَّالِّينَ or if I were to continue. However, let's look at the ya towards the end. That ya is a harf mad and it's followed by a noon. When I stopped on the noon, so that sukoon on the noon, that is a temporary sukoon. It will only be there when we stop. However, if we continued, we would read it with a fatha. On the other hand, on the lam, that sukoon on the first lam, that is permanent. That is always there. That's an original sukoon. That will stay a sukoon if we continued or if we stopped. So that's why the alif in وَلَا الضَّالِّينَ, that alif there is a Mad Lazim because it's followed by a permanent sukoon. So let's summarize and tick off those learning objectives. First, we wanted to identify and apply Mad Lazim. And we said that mad lazim is when there is a harf of mad followed by an original sukoon. And what is the length of mad lazim? 6 harakat. And the third point is, now we've seen examples where mad lazim can come in a word or in a letter. We'll see you in the next video. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.